Ramadan al-Kareem, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today is April 9, 2023. I am Muhammad Yusuf, the President of World Rohingya Organization, presenting my regular speech. My subject is part number 146 and an appeal from WRO and its members and leadership to the governments of Bangladesh and the United States of America. Being a member of the Rohingya community and a human rights activist and defenders of the rights of the Rohingyas, plead for more actions by both government, the United States of America and the Bangladesh government, to take more actions against the state-sponsors terrorist Myanmar military junta and its brutal forces who are still engaged in genocide, war crimes and crimes against humanity. In this context, we come to know that the Secretary of State Mr. Blinken and the Bangladesh Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momin are scheduled to meet on April 10 tomorrow in Washington DC to discuss the bilateral matters and the ongoing Rohingya refugee crisis in Bangladesh and Myanmar. The meeting is expected to focus on the need for increased international cooperation and support to address the humanitarian and human rights issues faced by Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, as well as in the importance of holding those responsible for the atrocities committed against them accountable. Both countries are committed to finding a durable and sustainable solution to the crisis and supporting the safe and voluntary return of the Rohingya refugees to their homes in Arakan State, Burma. Voluntary Rohingya repatriation refers to the safe and dignified return of the Rohingya refugees to their country of origin in Arakan State, which should be based on the informed and voluntary decisions by the refugees themselves. In the case of the Rohingya refugees, voluntary repatriation involves ensuring that they can return to their homes in Myanmar with guarantee of safety, security, and access to basic rights and services, healthcare, education, including their citizenship rights. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees (UNHCR) is the lead agency responsible for facilitating and coordinating voluntary repatriation efforts to ensure that the process is truly voluntary. The UNHCR conducts information campaigns and provides refugees with the accurate and up-to-date information on the conditions in their country of origin, as well as the support that they will be available to them upon their return. Voluntary repatriation can only be considered a durable solution to the refugee crisis if the conditions in that countries of origins are conducive to a safe, dignified and sustainable return. This means that the authorities in Myanmar must take concrete steps to address the root causes of the conflict and led to the displacement of the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, including ensuring that they have access to citizenship, freedom of movement and basic human rights. In addition, voluntary repatriation must be accompanied by the measures to support the reintegration of the returnees into their communities, such as access to livelihood opportunities, land rights and social services. To ensure the success of the voluntary repatriation, it is essential to make the Rohingya people aware of their safe, dignified return. To ensure the success of the voluntary repatriation, It is also essential that all stakeholders, including governments, Bangladesh and Myanmar, also international organizations and NGOs and civil society work together to address the complex challenges faced by the refugees and support their safe and dignified return to their homeland. Therefore, Secretary of State Mr. Blinken and Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momen both need to discuss very seriously whether the forthcoming repatriation process, counting nearly 1,014 members of the Rohingya refugees repatriation, is voluntary. At the same time, the United Nations Secretary General, UNHCR, and Human Rights Watch and other international NGOs informed to the world that the current situation in Arkan state is not suitable for the return and repatriation of the Rohingya refugees because still today Myanmar military junta government and also the brutal forces are carrying out war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide, and it is known to the world. It is a matter of concern that still Myanmar military junta government has not laid down the proper steps and conditions in Arakan state. Still, Myanmar military junta Myanmar government is saying that all Rohingya who return back to their home country must hold national verification certificate and BC. That means a foreigners, and they have to live there for many years to apply for citizenship. And again, still Burmese military junta is not ready to accept the Rohingya people in the name of Rohingya ethnicity and as a national minority races like other 135 national races. At the same time, Myanmar military junta government has not given any guarantee that the return of Rohingya refugees back in their homeland will be protected from all kind of persecution and atrocities. So still it is very much harmful for the Rohingya refugees to return without any guarantee and security of life, liberty, freedom, and their opportunities of going back to their own villages. To say more openly and frankly, it is not willingness of the Myanmar military junta to accept the Rohingya refugees from Bangladesh to Myanmar, because Bangladesh government has sent already 865,000 Rohingya refugee list to Burma, Myanmar, but Burmese government, according to their spokesperson, told that only 80,000 Rohingyas were verified and accepted. Among them, 50,000 are eligible and 30,000 have no any proper documentations. So they are blocking and making many obstacles for the Rohingya refugees to return. Unfortunately now, with the help of China, India, Bangladesh and some Asian countries, they are engaged to repatriate only 1,114 Rohingya refugees members from Bangladesh refugee camp, which will pave the way for the Burmese military junta to show to the world that they are accepting Rohingya people. But it is a completely trick and a cheating, because they are not accepting the Rohingya refugees as Rohingya people and as citizens of the Myanmar. So how it is acceptable for the Rohingya refugees who are demanding to go back to their country with their rights of return, and they want the guarantees of the safety, security and dignified return with the basic rights including citizenship rights and recognition of their national identity, Rohingya name. In fact, Myanmar military junta is not willing to accept all Rohingya peoples. They just want to show to the world that they are accepting Rohingya refugees. In fact, they are determined to wipe out entire Rohingya community from the soil of their homelands, Arakan state. So, they have intent to destroy Rohingya ethnic minority, and they have carried on genocide, war crimes and crimes against humanity already. So, until and unless There is no political solution for the rights of the Rohingya people. With the guarantee of the life, liberty and freedom, it is impossible for the Rohingya people to go back to the hell and the country where they have been killed and tortured and persecuted. Meanwhile, on behalf of the entire Rohingya people, particularly living in diaspora and in Bangladesh refugee camps and those in Rohingya refugee displaced camps in Arakan state and all over the world, that we express our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to the governments of the United States of America and Bangladesh government, because in response to the Rohingya crisis, the United States has imposed targeted sanctions on individuals and entities in Burma, Myanmar who are responsible for human rights abuses. The US government has also provided humanitarian aid to Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh and Myanmar and other countries. Additionally, the US government has called on Myanmar government to end the violence and persecutions against the Rohingyas and has worked with other countries and international organizations to address the crisis. However, the situation remains unsolved and the Rohingya continue to face persecution and displacement. In 2017, the US imposed targeted sanctions on Myanmar's military leaders responsible for violence. The US has provided over $1 billion in humanitarian aid to support Rohingya refugees, both inside Myanmar and in neighboring countries, Bangladesh. The US government has also provided diplomatic and political support to the Rohingya cause. For example, in 2019, the US House of Representatives passed a resolution condemning the violence against the Rohingya and calling Myanmar to take action to protect the Rohingyas' rights. The US has also supported efforts to hold Myanmar accountable for its actions, including through International Criminal Court (ICC). In 2019, the ICC authorized an investigation into the crimes against humanity committed against the Rohingya people. In addition to the government actions, many US-based organizations and individuals have worked to raise awareness and provide support for the Rohingyas. For example, several humanitarian organizations have launched fundraising campaigns to provide food, shelter and medical care for the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh refugee camps. The United States government has been a vocal critic of the Myanmar government's treatment of the Rohingyas. In 2018, the Secretary of State of that time, Mike Pompeo, called the situation ethnic cleansing and urged Myanmar to take steps to end violence. The US has provided funding to support investigations into human rights abuses against Rohingya. In 2018, the US provided $1.8 million to support United Nations fact-finding missions to investigate the situation. The US has also supported efforts to provide education and livelihood opportunities for Rohingya refugees. In 2020, the US provided $18 million to support education and vocational training for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. The US has worked with other countries to address the crisis, including through the United Nations and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN). In 2019, the US co-hosted a conference on the Rohingya crisis with the UK and UN. The US has also taken steps to address the root causes of the crisis, including through support for democracy, human rights in Myanmar. In 2021, the US announced new sanctions on Myanmar's military leaders following the coup in February of the year. Last year, on March 21, 2022, following a rigorous factual and legal analysis, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken determined that members of the Burmese military junta government has committed genocide and crimes against humanity against Rohingya people. It was the eighth determination of the United States government about the genocide in the history. Similarly, we the Rohingya people would like to express our gratitude and appreciation to the Bangladesh government who has taken significant steps to provide humanitarian assistance to Rohingya refugees who fled the persecution and violence in Burma, Myanmar since 2017. Bangladesh has provided shelter, food and medical assistance to the thousands of Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh refugee camp who have sought safety in the country. Bangladesh government has provided shelter to more than 1 million Rohingya refugees in the camps in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, making it one of the largest refugee settlements in the world. Bangladesh has worked closely with international organizations such as the United Nations and various international humanitarian agencies to provide assistance to Rohingya refugees. The Bangladesh government has also invested significant resources in managing the refugee crisis, including through the establishment of a dedicated government agency, the Rohingya Relief and Repatriation Commission called RRRC. The Bangladesh government has also worked with international partners to advocate for a sustainable solution to the Rohingya crisis. The country has called for the repatriation of the refugees to Myanmar in a safe and voluntary manner, with guarantees of citizenship and other rights. However, as of now, the situation in Burma, Myanmar remains uncertain and refugees continue to reside in Bangladesh waiting for repatriation. Whereas we are very much grateful to these great two nations, United States and Bangladesh, we want to say that still today, after determination of the genocide by the US government announced by Secretary of State Antony Blinken and also providing all kinds of help and assistance by the Bangladesh government to Bangladesh Rohingya refugees, still today the problem is unsolved. The ASEAN, the European Union, the Americas and all other international NGOs who have been trying to make a settlement and for the safe return and repatriation of the Rohingya refugees to their motherland, Arakan state is unsolved. Based on these facts, I would like to request the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and also the Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momen to think very seriously about the condition of Bangladesh and Myanmar border and also the voluntary repatriation of the Rohingya refugees. So I think it will be very thankful to both foreign ministers to discuss about this matter so that Rohingyas can go back to their country with honor, dignity, safety, security and guarantee of citizenship and all other rights and services in Myanmar. Finally, I want to say that I am a Rohingya activist and I have been a human rights activist for the last 45 years dedicated for the cause of the Rohingya people. But as I have seen and as my experience, Burmese government, military junta or civilian government, they are not willing to accept entire Rohingya people in Arakan state, Burma, and they don't want to recognize the Rohingya as a national, one of the national races of Arakan. They don't want to give equality, justice, and kind treatment in Arakan state, Burma, like other national races. They are xenophobic and they are racist and they are anti-Rohingya elements. So they have intent, the government of Myanmar has intent to wipe out the entire ethnic Rohingya population. That's why they are trying just to show to the world, to lessen the pressure of the world that they are taking some Rohingya peoples. Finally, I want to say also that only the international community and big powers in the world can impose sanctions and also provide ways by responsibility to protect concept R2P and providing safe zone and making the Rohingya people safe in a separate zone with the Security Council's resolutions. If just going on this way for years and years in refugee camps in Bangladesh, the Rohingyas became hopeless and they are trying to go to Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia and other countries by sea routes where they are every day facing hardship, death and difficulties. So if the world cannot provide safety and security and other opportunities, then it is also important to know that the Rohingyas have a right of self-determination on the basis of UN concept to fight against the Myanmar military junta, just as fighting the PDF forces under the National Unity Government. So the Rohingyas have also the right to defend themselves with their arms, fighting back the enemies for their survival. The acting president of National Unity Government, Dushi Lawa, he has already called entire Burmese people to raise in arms to fight against the Myanmar military junta. So among the Myanmar population and citizens of Myanmar, the Rohingyas are included. So the Rohingyas have also the rights of self-defense on the basis of the call of the National Unity Government. So the Secretary of State Mr. Blinken and Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momen should also consider this point, that Burma is not willing to give ways and means for a repatriation. So it will be important to note that we have to morally and materially and financially support those who are fighting for the self-defense, for the survival of their lives and to face the existential threat of the Rohingya people. Thank you very much. I am Muhyiddin Muhammad Yusuf from USA, President of World Rohingya Organization. Thank you.